active in AIDS prevention in Africa. So these are two very interesting facts about him before he starts. I mentioned Fulbright because Fulbright is an organization that provides opportunities for international exchange. And we have some Fulbrighters in the room. Several of you, and maybe the faculty who've done that, you might raise your hand and just let people know who you are. If you've taught abroad as a Fulbrighter for a year. Yeah, we have Rashid with us, and we have Tim who's done that. Fulbright provides opportunities for Americans to go abroad and for internationals to come here. If you're an American student who is interested in spending a year abroad after you graduate from WKU, there are opportunities such as the English language teaching assistantship that would place you in a school in another country to teach your native language. Or there are also Fulbright research scholarships that you can apply to. So the Office of Scholar Development here on our campus can certainly be helpful to you in putting together a competitive application for the Fulbright or other scholarships that would take you abroad. And I do believe we have someone from the Office of Scholar Development here. Cheryl Kirby-Stokes is here. So talk to her afterwards. If you get inspired, if you want to go abroad, if you want to know how to find the money to do that, that is her job, is to help you with that. If you are interested in learning more about going to Kenya and doing research there, we also have Dr. Mike Stokes with us here also. He can tell you a little bit about his ongoing research there. So at this point, I want to hand things over to Isaac. Our plan is that he will tell you, he will give his lecture, and then we'll have some time for discussion. You're free to get up at any point and just grab a little more to eat or drink. Don't feel shy about that. So welcome, everyone, and welcome, Isaac.
First of all, I want to thank you all for coming here. It's an honor and so much privilege to stand before you. Secondly, I want to thank the Department of Modern Languages for giving me this opportunity just to share with you about our country, Kenya, so that you be aware of this small nation that is hidden in Africa. So feel at home, feel at Kenya. Thank you so much. I won't introduce myself as you've been told. My name's arrived there and then she has told you about me, so I'm not going back to that. So let's get started. Kenya. I know most of you must have heard of Kenya. Maybe I'll be able to project my voice so that everyone can hear, because I'm thinking of bending down and I'm finding it a little bit a struggle, but I can just talk so that everyone can hear me. Is that okay? People who are seated there? Thank you so much. So the Republic of Kenya, that's the official name of Kenya. So maybe some of you have just heard of Kenya, but it's the Republic of Kenya. So I'll start by explaining, maybe we need to know where is this Kenya. Kenya, the name Kenya came from one of the tallest mountain in Kenya, which is called Mount Kenya. That's where the name Kenya was founded by the British who lived there early before. So the name was adopted from this mountain because it was called Kenya. That's when we had Kenya as a name. So let's see where Kenya is. As you can see right here, we have, so you can see the distance that you might have for you to reach Kenya. So Kenya is hidden right there in Africa, in East and Central Africa. So you realize that now that's the region of which Kenya is found. Now, let's see some facts about Kenya. As you can see, that's the map of Kenya. And we are being bordered by several countries. Ethiopia on the north, on the west we have, on the east we have Somalia, on the west we have Uganda, on the northwest we have South Sudan, and then south we have Tanzania. And then you can see the large water masses that we border Indian Ocean, and then Lake Victoria, which is the second largest lake in the world after Lake Superior in the US. Some of you might be aware of it. So Nairobi is the capital city of Kenya. as you can see there, and it's the largest city in Kenya. Kenya has got an area of 580 square kilometers, as you can see right there. That is the whole area of Kenya. Kenya has got a population of 46 million people, and it is expected that this is going to rise because there is some maybe higher birth rate that is taking place in Kenya, and we expect this to rise in the few years to come. Major languages in the country is Swahili and English. So if you plan to go to Kenya, these are the languages that are being spoken in Kenya. English is used maybe in the commercial industry, and then in the office and in urban centers, that's where English is used. But when you go to other regions outside the urban centers, you find that now Swahili is the language that is spoken widely in those areas. So that's why it's always good when you want to do research, when you want to visit Kenya, it's always good to know Swahili, because you're going to have a good time when you're speaking to people who are outside from Nairobi or the urban centers. As you can see, the GDP when it comes to economy, we're operating under 42.4 billion US dollars. That is an estimate that was there by 2010. Employment is 40% of the labor force is not employed. And the 60% that is employed, you realize that now 75% of them comes from the agriculture industry, as you are going to see. So you realize that now 40% is the literate people but are not employed. That's some of the challenge that Kenya might be facing as we'll be looking into details. 50% of the population lives below the poverty line. You realize that now most people in Kenya, 50% of the population survive under $1 or less. So you realize that now a day, someone will survive under $1 a day. So you realize that now a dollar in Kenyan shillings is 86 shillings. $1 is equal to 86 shillings. So this person might survive on 86 shillings in a day. So you realize that now that one might not be able to make sure that to sustain this person who has got baby families and kids in a day. Some of the problems that you're facing in Kenya is AIDS and malaria. As you maybe might have heard of malaria, this is a problem in Kenya affecting children under the age of 5. And there are many campaigns that are going on just to work on malaria. I think AIDS, we want to appreciate the fact that the prevalence is going down because people are getting aware through the media. You realize that now people are getting informed and making informed choices. So that one is not a problem at the moment, but still malaria is a great problem at the moment. The major religion in Kenya is Christianity, and life expectancy is 57 years for men and 59 years for women. What you can see here is several cities and towns that in Kenya. The major cities after Nairobi is Mombasa, which is famous for tourism, and then we have Kisumu right there, which is the second largest city in Kenya. So let's go ahead and look at the national symbols. Whenever you see this, what comes to your mind should be Kenya. That's our coat of arms, and then we have the national flag, and then we have the Kenyan shilling. This is now the unit of measure in Kenyan shillings. So 86 of this is equivalent to $1. This is 100 Kenyan shillings, not. So those are some of the things that can come to your mind when you think of Kenya. Let's look at the people. Most people in Kenya are farmers. As I've been told you, 75% of the Kenyan people are employed by agriculture. So you realize that now this is what most Kenyan people are involved in. Majority or some of the people are pastoralists, and when you talk about pastoral, they deal with animals. Maybe this is a culture that has been there since before, and some of the communities, they've held it as a culture, and that's their source of livelihood. When we look at those who live under water masses, they like fishing, so you realize that now it's also a source of livelihood, especially the people who live around Lake Victoria and those who live around the coast under the Indian Ocean. So they operate through fishing and with the many lakes and rivers that are in Kenya. Artisan is also another source of livelihood for people who are living in urban centers. You realize that now, because people don't have maybe white-collar job, they end up improvising through artisans, and we realize that now it is a major source of income for part of Kenyans. Business, as you can see, business commands everywhere, be it in America, be it in the world. So most of the middlemen in Kenya and middlewomen, they realize that now business is the way to go. So we've got small-scale business, large-scale business taking place in Kenya. You've heard of Kenya, is very famous in sports. As you can see, that is David Rudisha. Most of you have heard of him. Was beaten world record. We are proud of them, and they are some of the people that make Kenya known across the world. So Kenya is a multi-ethnic country. As you can see, we have got different groups of people living in Kenya. From the statistic that was done by CIA, which is an American research company, it realized that now we have Kikuyu who take 22% of the Kenyan population. Luya is 14, Luo is 13, Kalenjin 12, Kamba 11, and Meru 6. And there are other smaller groups of people who are also living in our country, and you realize that now the ethnic groups that we have in our country amount to 42 ethnic tribes that are in Kenya, each speaking its own language. And here, as you can see, even the Luya itself has got other smaller dialect people who live in different groupings. So in this case here, you realize there are also other languages that are within a certain community like Luya, which has got 21 languages spoken in that area. So you realize that now Kenya has got almost 68 languages that are spoken in that nation. In the US, you might just have Spanish and English alone. So when you go there, you might meet people who are speaking different languages. But as I've told you, Swahili is there to bring people together. So this is like a language that brings, a lingua franca, that brings all the communities of people of Kenya together. So all the people in Kenya are able to speak Swahili, and this applies to the people of Kenya and those who are visiting the country. So, as you can see here, the Luya live in the western part of the country. The Kikuyu command the central part where Nairobi is also found. And then we have the Embu and Kamba taking that position over there. The Mijikenda, it is called Mijikenda because there are 9 tribes, and Kenda in Swahili means 9. So we realize that now they occupy that part of the country. And then the northeastern part is commanded by the Somalis, because Somali, you realize that now because you're being bordered by Somali, these people find their way to Kenya and they take part of that position over there. So let us talk about food. As you can know that Kenyan people, this is the most famous food in Kenya. It is called ugali. So if you happen to visit Kenya, you'll be served with ugali. This is made from corn. It's a corn meal whereby water is heated to 100 degrees Celsius and mixed with flour, and then it is mashed together, mixed together, and it forms that dough you can see there, which can be accompanied by greens, vegetable like collards or kales. It can also be served with beef stew, chicken stew, and all other sorts of stews as it might deem right. We have fish, we have chapati. Chapati is made from wheat flour, and it is just baked, and then it is a form of bread that is locally made, and it serves as a source of accompaniment, maybe when you're taking tea or when you're eating any other food like fish or chicken, it can accompany the same. There is a mixture of cooked beans and cooked maize, and then it can be eaten with vegetable or fish or chicken as it might be deemed right for the people who are using it. Biryani is kind of food that is eaten at the coast, whereby it's a mixture of rice and some spices, so that the kind of food that is cooked along the coast. Mokimo is a famous food in the central part of Kenya, which is eaten by Kikuyus. So you can see we've got a variety of foods in Kenya because of different ethnic communities. So you realize that now every community has got its own favorite food. That's why you can see we are coming up with a variety of foods. But this doesn't dispute the fact that there is also pizza, there is also hamburger in the modern people, because you cannot do away with such food. So you realize that now in the modern restaurants in Nairobi, the pizza, the hamburger, the everything is commanding the day. So you will find those stuff if you go to Kenya. Don't expect maybe you'll be forced to eat ugali alone. No, that doesn't work here. So let's talk about Kenya. Before it became, it was a massive land known as the Great Lake Region, which is the present East and Central Africa. Why are we calling it the Great Lake Region? This is because before the British came, it was just a mass of land. But when they came, they realized that now this place was called the Great Lake Region. This is because it was an area that surrounded Lake Victoria. And Lake Victoria being the largest lake in that area, it commanded the name the Great Lake Region because of Lake Victoria. So when the British came, they're the ones who came over and they took it as a protectorate, as we are going to see in the later slides. So Kenya was inhabited by the Bantu, who are believed to have come from southern Nigeria and also part of Cameroon. Nilo-Congo, who came from the Congo forest. We have the Nilo-Saharans, the Afro-Asiatics. And because of this group of people, you can see they came from different places. They're the ones that lead to the 42 multi-ethnic tribes that we have in Kenya. That's why we have got very many tribes in Kenya, because of different people who came from different sources, right? So when the British came to Kenya as explorers, they took this land called Kenya and they call it British Protectorate. So they wanted to command that area, so they gave it the name. This is a name that was famous in the 1890s, even to the late 1940s, and they call it British Colony. After the British Protectorate, it became the British Colony because we were commanded, or we were ruled by the British during the pre-colonial days. So let's look at this. So as you saw in our poster, we were talking about from independence to the 21st century. So let's talk about independence. So you realize that now in 1952, there's a lot of wrangles whereby the Africans were trying to fight the British through what was called as guerrilla war. Guerrilla war was the kind of war whereby these Africans could fight the British by hiding, because they were using crude weapons. They could not have the sophisticated weapon like the gun, the pistol, so they could fight the whites by hiding. So they make a crude spear, they throw at them, and then they hide in the forest. That's why it was called guerrilla war. So in 1952 to 1955, the Mau Mau, the people who were fighting for independence, this is the kind of style they were using to fight. So you realize that now from 1952 to 1959, there was that war that was taking place. And because the British were spending a lot of money just on the war, they decided to quit and leave Kenya. So you realize that now in 1960, the Mau Mau came up with this leader who is called Jomo Kenyatta. And that's why he's called the founding father, because he had commanded, he had studied in England. So he was one of the people who had got knowledge and skills before. Because you realize that now, before that, very few Kenyans were learned. And because he had gone out of the country, he had studied in England, he came back, and you realize that now, from this time when he came, the Kenyans thought that this is the person we want to lead us, because he has got knowledge and skills and he can do it better. So in this case, he became the leader of KANU. KANU was the party that was formed by then, and through that, you realize that now in 1963, Kenya received its independence, and a year later, it became the Republic of Kenya. So this was the first president under KANU to lead Kenya. So he was able to lead Kenya till 1978. And in 1978, he died. It was just a sudden death. So he died, and the vice president, who was then called Daniel Toroitich Arap Moi, this is the one who took over in 1978, and he became the second president of Kenya after Kenyatta passed on. So Moi was a teacher. He was the VP to Kenyatta and left power after the expiry of the constitutional limit. And you realize that now the kind of leadership that he had was authoritative kind of leadership in Kenya. Because we realize that now from Kenyatta used skills to lead Kenyan people. And you realize that now when Moi came in, he was sort of authoritative. And that's why we realize that now he's the longest serving president. He could manipulate his way so that he did not want to leave power. So you realize that now from 1978 to 2002, those are 24 good years that he was in power. And you realize that now he had a party, only single party, so that he did not want multi-party to give him challenge. But he had several problems in 2000 whereby we had multi-party and he was able to be ousted from power. Again, the constitution that was there did not give him a chance because we realize that now 24 years was the limit for one to be in power. Under his leadership, there was a lot of corruption, and we can say that now he's one of the people who affected Kenya, as you will know from other sources. And because we had got a lot of corruption in his tenure, the economy of Kenya was wallowing. This is because you realize that now he's a kind of person who did not want criticism, and in his leadership, he did what he thought was right for him. So many Kenyans did not like him, and that's why we see we had Kibaki coming in 2002. This is the current president of Kenya at the moment, and in 2002, he won by a landslide margin because people were tired of leadership of Moi. And when he came in, we realized that now all Kenyans, like 90% of Kenyans, voted for him because they were just tired under the leadership of Moi. So he was able to take over in 2002. But we can see when he came in with some few changes of which Kenyans were happy about. You remember that education was very expensive during the tenure of Moi. So he realized that now Kenya needs education, so he introduced free primary education. This was the first time Kenya had free primary education. This is the basic level of education one will need. So that is the change that he came in. He subsidized the secondary education, whereby now people were supposed, the middle people in Kenya were supposed to pay just a little amount for them to be able to cater for secondary education. And then he tried very hard to reduce corruption, though he could not do it to the best, but he tried to reduce corruption, and then he came up with a new constitution, but that constitution could not work because it was voted down by Kenyans. And then he was able to bring democracy to limelight. Remember, before the days of Moi, you could not criticize him. You criticize him, you go. You criticize him, you're killed. So that was terrible. You could not talk anything against the former president who you had seen before. So this is a guy who came up with few changes, and he made the international community to start trusting Kenya with funds. So people had withdrawn funds, they started coming in again because of him, because they had started building some form of trust in Kenya because of the changes he made. So you can see he won by a landslide. Everyone was happy. It's like it was like a new nation, and everyone was happy about it. And you can see he's addressing the crowd, and people were just happy because of him, and they had some sort of trust in him. But now there's a problem that arose. After his tenure of 5 years, Kibaki did not want to leave power. It seemed that power is so sweet. But because Kenyans, they always want change. They always want change. But this guy decided to stick on power with what was referred to as manipulated election. What happened in 2007 is that when he went to elections, it is believed that he lost. But what happened, because of some sort of reason, and because of high level of corruption in our country, it is believed that he rigged elections. In this case, some votes were rigged in favor of him, and he became the president, but not everyone was happy about it. So most Kenyans were not happy about it, and this resulted in post-election violence. This is because Kenyans believed that it was not fair and did not work with what they expected. And as you realize that now, Kenya is a multi-ethnic tribe. This is also another source of conflict that is arising because of the many tribes that are coming in. So it depends on where you come from. So when it depends on where you come from, it brings conflict. And this resulted to post-election violence because a section of Kenyans believed that Kibaki won, and another section believed that Raila, who was the opponent, won. So this brought post-election violence. You can see we lost 1,500 lives, and 500,000 people are displaced without homes. Till today, there are IDP camps as a result of this. So people are living in turmoil because of what happened. We had unstable economy in 2007. That's when our GDP went low and a dollar rose to 106 shillings. That's the highest it has ever rose to. Then as we go on, you can see this is the man I was talking about. This is the one people believe that he won, but the elections were rigged in favor of him. And that's where the conflict arose. So it forced Kenya to have a coalition government in 2008. And through eminent person, Kofi Annan, he was the mediator, arbitrator, and he was able to bring these people together. And the constitution was supposed to be changed in order to accommodate Raila, in order to form a coalition government. So there was an amendment to the Kenyan constitution to allow Raila to be the prime minister. But before that, we did not have prime minister position in the old constitution. So it was amended in order to create a coalition government. This was an emergency thing because Kenyans were dying and we wanted to have peace. And that's why this was formed. So it was sort of an emergency because in that time, Kenya was in turmoil. For those who had the news, people were dying, and it was like we had a lot of tension in our country. So it forced these two gentlemen to form a coalition. Good thing, under his leadership still again, we'll say that now he has got something he accomplished, even though he stuck to power, but we want to appreciate Kibaki for one thing, because we've seen very many changes during his tenure. In 2010, it's like Kenya, we had a new republic. We had a different Kenya again. This is because of the new constitution. The new constitution, it was something that changed Kenya afresh. In fact, people say that now this is the second republic. That's what they used to say. We are having a second republic. Why? Because we were having a new constitution. And this new constitution was like a source of, a harbinger of good things to come. So in this case, people were very happy in 2010 when the new constitution was promulgated in. As you can see, this is the new constitution that is being promulgated. We had masses of people who came just to witness the occasion. As you can see, this is the president signing the new constitution, and this is him lifting it up. So this time, it was like a turnover. It was like a turning point, whereby Kenya, we were leaving the old Kenya to the new Kenya. As you can realize, the constitution we had before, it was the constitution that was used by the colonial power to lead Kenya. And you can realize that now such constitution was very cruel, and it was only in favor of the British. So many things were supposed to be changed in this constitution. So once we had a new constitution, this was like a new baby that was born in Kenya. So this is the fruits of the new constitution. Many reforms took place during, after promulgation of this constitution. As we can see, we have the political reforms. The political reform is something that Kenya have been yearning for, because we had a dictatorial sort of whereby power is only centralized to the president. Power is only centralized at the top. But now, when this came in, we can see there is sort of democracy that is coming in. There is decentralization of power. Now that we've got 47 counties, whereby now power has been decentralized to the governors who are leading each county. So people of Kenya can feel ownership of the country. But before that, power was only vested at the top. You could not criticize the president before. But now, if you see anything wrong in the president, you can criticize and nothing happens. Because that's the kind of democracy we are having at the moment. If you see your leader is not doing well, you can withdraw that leader by coming up with 1,000 signatures. And you say, we feel that this leader is not doing well, so we want to withdraw him. So this is the kind of fruits that we are having as Kenyans. And it has brought a lot of light to our country. There is transparency in governance. Before that, I've talked about corruption. But right now, everyone must be accountable. Many are times when Kenya received donation, when Kenya received some funds from international community, but those funds could not be accounted for, were misappropriated. So in this case, right now we've got transparency in government and even in its ministries and everything that is far as concerned with the foreign donation and foreign funds. We've got an election act. As you can realize that now, in 2002, the problem arose because of the Electoral Commission of Kenya. The elections were rigged because of the Electoral Commission of Kenya, because it was not on point with its activities when it came to election time. So the new constitution came up with the Election Act, whereby the old constitution that was used by Electoral Commission was overhauled, and they came up with a new Election Act. This was to govern future elections. So you realize that now some of the things that were changed, they are very many, but I'll be able to mention a few in the Election Act. So in the Election Act, we are going to have, this is the first time we are going to have electronic voting. Initially, we've had manual voting, and this manual voting was a source of rigging. So you realize that now electronic voting going to reduce some of the malpractice that have been coming or have been witnessed before. Let's talk about the judicial reforms. The judicial reforms, this is a very important organ in our country at the moment. You realize that now, before we did not have judges vetted. Judges were just appointed by the president. But right now, there is vetting of judges. People must sit in a panel to ensure that these people have been vetted. So you realize that now, this is a plus to our country. And I just want to tell you something that happened a few months ago. The Deputy Chief Justice went to a shopping center, and she was met with this guard, because when you enter a shopping center, you must be searched because of the insecurity you are facing in our country. But this Deputy Justice wanted that guard to know that he's the Deputy Chief Justice, and he told that guard, you should know people, and he pinched the nose of that guard, and he removed the gun and pointed at that guard and told him, I can kill you now, you should know who people are. But because of the new constitution, he lost his job. You see, that's why I'm saying a new constitution is a very good thing in our country. He was able to lose his job. Now he has been accused, and there is a court case that is going on. When I was listening to news last night, I was told that he lost, and he have to pay for the damages. So you've lost your job, you're paying for the damages, and then you're going in. So you can see that's why we're appreciating the fruits of the new constitution. So you can see light is coming to Kenya. But before, such thing would not have been witnessed in Kenya. So the pending court cases, before that we had got very many court cases that were there in Kenya. But you realize that now, due to these court cases were able to be resolved, and right now we've been told there's only little percentage of the court cases that are pending, but we are sure that it's going to come to an end. There are police reforms. We've got retraining of police. minimum academic requirement of C for the police. Before that, we've got police who were not going to school before, leading our country or guarding our country. But right now, we need police who are educated. Public finance management reform, we've got now transparency, accountability, and fight against wasteful spending as a result of the corruption that is there. Public sector reform, we have poverty reduction, success through capacity building in deplorable areas. As you can see, those are some of the reforms that are coming in as a result of the new constitution. Major education developments in Kenya. We've got free primary education. The free primary education is it's a positive thing in our country, because we realize that now when free primary education came over, 1 million children were able to go back to school. So you can imagine you are having 1 million children who are not educated before because they did not have enough funds and resources to go back to school. And you can see over a half of these 1 million children were girls who could not afford education. You realize some of the culture in Kenya, they believe in a boy child. So a boy child goes to school at the expense of the girl child. So if a family has got a boy and a girl, the one who is given consideration is a boy. So this is doing a service to the girl child. So you realize that now most girls were able to go to school. As a result of that, we had increased literacy level going on. And then we had subsidized secondary education. I think this one I talked about that. And then we had review of the curriculum that was very oppressive before. We've got now implementation of the ICT in primary schools. Now students are able to have info about technology. But before that, such kids could not have technology until they go to university. That's when they are meeting technology for the first time. But now, so you realize that now it's an interest. Being in the world of technology where information is moving so fast, we need such kids to have information at a lower age. Economy, the GDP has gone high by 4.9%. We've got ICT innovation. As you can see, those are some of the things that are happening in our country. And thank to God, we were able to come up with oil in northeastern part of Kenya. This is something that is a plus for Kenya because it's going to improve the economy of our country. So what is happening now is to see the viability of those deposits, whether they can be exploited on commercial level or not. But we've had positive information that it can be exploited on commercial ground. So this is going to improve the economy of our country. So if you're planning to invest in Kenya, this is something good. You need to do that as soon as possible. Yeah, some of the economic activities that we have, it is tea. We produce highest amount of black tea. That is, as you can see, and most of the export that we have, tea is the leading after coffee. And then we've got flour. Flour industry is growing very fast in our country. Most of the flour that we produce, they are used in Europe. I don't know why not in Kenya, because Kenyans don't value flowers, but you realize that now it is a very important source of income for Kenya. So most of the flour, almost 90% of the flour is exported in the Europe countries. Tourism is another sector that is doing very well in our country. It is one of the service industry that is giving feedback or remitting a lot of revenue to our government. Small-scale businesses are also on the height in Kenya. Health. Let me talk about health. The problem you're having now is to fight malaria, and you realize that now across the Lake region, children under the age of 5 are vulnerable to malaria, and this is some of the things or the campaign that is going on to ensure that there is a reduction in children who are affected with malaria. Some of the things that they are doing is to make sure that they protect pregnant mothers through provision of mosquito nets. You realize that now most of them cannot afford a mosquito net, so the government, through donors, they are able to provide mosquito net to these mothers and to ensure that they are well educated on how to use the mosquito net, because some of them are given mosquito nets and they don't use them, and as a result we realize that now their children are affected. HIV is also a problem to our country, but the the government is working hard to ensure that the drugs are being subsidized, and we have got also the patient being provided with the drugs. Because we realize that now drugs, the HIV drugs are very expensive in Kenya. So what the government is doing is to subsidize them, because they cannot even be provided free of charge. So they must subsidize so that these people can afford. But we realize that now, as much as they are being subsidized, not all people can afford it. So it is still a problem in our country. So we are also working hard to sensitize people on healthy living, like having balanced diet. Most people eat the same kind of food all day, all week, all month. So you realize that now this is a problem. People don't take balanced diet, and that's why we've got sort of malnutrition to children and even the sick people. You realize that now it's as a result of malnutrition. We have got regular campaign to ensure that people wash their hands. You might not take this as a little thing, but most people don't wash hands, especially children, school-going children. They don't wash hands after the use of toilet. So this is a problem that also increase problem of diseases in Kenya. I've talked about use of mosquito nets, child delivery in hospital. Most people, most families, especially the low-level families, they deliver in their houses, and you feel like this is a big problem. So people are being advised to go to the hospitals, and more dispensaries are being created to ensure that these people are able to access these dispensaries as much as they can. On matters to do with internal and national security, we've got crimes that are taking place at large sects like Mungiki. If you Google Mungiki, you will get some of the sects that are terrorizing people in Kenya, but Kenya is working hard to ensure that it eliminates such sects. Robbery with violence, these are some of the things that are happening. And then we've had foreign attacks from Al-Shabaab. Al-Shabaab is a group of Al-Qaeda, and it's based in Somalia. Somalia is the country that borders Kenya from the east. You realize that now it has been terrorizing tourists who've been coming to Kenya, and it has actually affected the income of Kenya. But of recent, Kenya was able to go to Somalia and ensure that it has brought to an end these victims who've been terrorizing Kenya, and that one has been a plus for our country also. Politics, I think I've talked much about politics, the board system of governance, performance contract, qualified and elected leader policy, electoral policy. Those are some of the things that will ensure that Kenya is growing. Social issues like poverty, it's a problem in Kenya. You can see this is the type of housing that people are having, and this is actually a big problem to our countries. School-going children do not have enough food, leave alone other things that they might need. So we realize that now this is also a problem to our country. So the new constitution and the new government is supposed to ensure that such things are resolved. HIV and AIDS, I've talked about that. You realize that now those are the statistics of HIV and AIDS in our country, but we want to say that the prevalence is coming down because of literacy people are receiving and the awareness campaigns that are going on in our country. Ethnic violence, as I said, is a source because of the multi-ethnic tribes in Kenya. They're the ones that lead to ethnic violence, whereby people who feel that maybe things are not working in their favor, they tend to attack other communities of which they think that are in favor instead of them. So this leads to more death, as we've looked in before. You can see these are IDP camps. People who've been displaced, they live in such camps, and you realize that now life here is not favorable. Staying the whole night in the cold, just living in camp, it is not actually favorable for them. We are coming up with a vision 2030. Actually, this is what is to spearhead us by 2030 to ensure that Kenya is a world-class country. And some of the things that we are working on are the 4 pillars. And these 4 pillars is economy, being the first of them, whereby we want to revamp agriculture, we want to revamp the tourism, and we want to revamp the small and medium enterprises to ensure that everything is working under that. The social pillar, we want to work on education and training, ensure that health is up to standard, the environment is well conserved, and the housing is good for the Kenyan people. As you can see, most people are living in substandard houses, so we need to ensure that at least people afford live in good houses as much as it deserves. The third pillar is political, the rule of law. That is the Constitution of Kenya, which will ensure that everything is governed well. The electoral and political processes in the country are well governed. Democracy, transparency are well dealt with. Enablers and macroeconomic stability is the fourth pillar, whereby we are working on infrastructure, ICT, whereby we realize that now in this fast-growing world, ICT cannot be downplayed. So as you can see, this is one of the major roads in Kenya, and before we did not have such roads in Kenya, but now this is a road that is connecting two major cities in Kenya, that is Nairobi and Thika. So as you can realize that now when we have such infrastructure, then we provide an avenue for the growth of the economy of our country. But if we don't have such, then you realize that now communication and movement from one place and another will not work for our country. So these are some of the activities that are taking place in our country to ensure that the economy is growing very fast. The Tullow company just discovered oil in northeastern Kenya, and you can see this is the work that is going on at the place to ensure that these resources are viable for commercial purposes. We are coming up with two model cities, that is Konza City and Tatu City. Why am I calling it a model city? You realize that now some of the planning that we have in our cities in Kenya, they are not up to standard. So they thought that now if we can come up with a model city so that we start from there, so that people can see what a city should be. Then they came up with two cities that the construction is taking place in Kenya. So by 2022, this is what we expect to see in Kenya. These are the two cities, model cities that we expect to see in Kenya by that time. And these cities are modeled on principle of live, work, and play. That's the principle that these cities have been modeled on. So this is the Konza City, this is the Tatu City, and I'm going to show you what we are looking at as the Konza City. So that's what is questions.
Where will Konza and Tatu be located?
Pardon? city is going to be located 15 kilometers away from Nairobi. It will be on the sort of outskirts of Nairobi town. And then the Konza city will be in Machakos, which is like 30 kilometers from Nairobi. So that's where the two cities are going to be placed.
What are the sources of funding for those model cities, and who is supposed to be living there once they are complete?
Good question, good question. She's asking what are the sources of finances to ensure that the cities are working. Okay, through our partnership with Japan, Japan is coming up to this help whereby there is a partnership between Kenyan government and Japan. That is not alone. We've got other investors who've been invited to be part of this project. And we realize that now once they are part of it, they will be the one who will be able to run the economy in this tattoo city. Your second question was that who will be living here? This is for all Kenyans. That's why we are saying that now it is a plan that is there to benefit Kenyans. You realize that now Nairobi is overpopulated. And they are coming up with this city so that people can go there. We are inviting investors to come and do that, to develop business in those cities. Number two, Kenyans themselves are also encouraged to invest. And they are not investing when these cities are ready, but they are investing now. So you realize now through investing in these cities now, they will be the beneficiaries in the future, in the days to come. I hope I've answered your question. Thank you.
What do people think about these? I mean, do people right now who are living in substandard housing see this and see, oh, that looks great, or do they see, oh, that's unrealistic?
Yeah, some people think it's unrealistic. Some people actually, especially the low-class people, when they see this on TV, they think that this is a heaven. This is not something that will be in Kenya, but it's unrealistic. But people, the middle class and the upper class, they know that this is an opportunity for Kenya. Any other questions? Yeah, if there is no other question, oh, you can ask.
Well, I was just going to ask, when are Kenya's next elections? Are they this year?
Pardon?
Oh, when are Kenya's next elections?
Oh, that's a very good question. We are going to have our next election under the new constitution, March 2013. That is 100 days from now. That's when you are going to have new elections. And it's good you brought that point right now, especially when America and Kenya are going to have elections. That's a very good thing to talk about. You realize that now, this is the first time we are going to have live debate in Kenya for your information. This is something that has never been there before. So the media houses have come together to ensure that they are conducting a live debate, but not for 2 candidates, but for 10 candidates. Because we've got 10 candidates who are vying for the presidency. But this is something good. Once you lose, you will never come back again. You will have to wait for 5 years. So you can see how the new constitution is working good for us. So you cannot medal down and come over and then you go to other lower positions so that you can be re-elected. No. You lose, you go home. So it's a risk for them. So that's why I'm saying kudos to the new constitution. So that's something that is of a plus to Kenya at the same time. That's a good question. Thank you for that.
So what language are you taking?
English. English, yeah, English. For sure. But it can even be conducted in Swahili because Swahili and English are official language in Kenya. Businesses can be done even in English and Swahili. Courts, business, and all other things can be conducted in Swahili. That's why if you know Swahili, you have an advantage working in Kenya because you can reach to all people. Any other question?
In Kenya, as well as in, I'm sure, many, if not all, other African countries, the tribes and ethnic groups play a very important source of pride to the countries. So do you see that as harmful to a country like Kenya's development and whatnot?
That's a very good question. One thing you need to know, as much as multi-ethnicity is a pride to our African countries, especially Kenya involved, it's also a source of conflict. This is something that has just come in. So what is happening now is to sensitize people. let us live in harmony. As much as we are from different tribes, but we are one Kenya. Right now we've got a commission that is going on to educate Kenyans on the importance of living in harmony, on the importance of living in peace, working together as a nation. Because what has happened and the leadership that has been there before, it has been championing negative ethnicity, whereby we are we and you are you. So that is some of the things that we are trying to work on to ensure that such negative ethnicity doesn't exist in the future. Yep, good question.
Does the conflict with Somalia help in any way to inspire a kind of Kenyan patriotism?
The last part I did.
Does the conflict with Somalia in any way help inspiring a kind of Kenyan patriotism or a sense of belonging to the country?
For sure, for sure. This has been a major achievement. Last year, the Kenyan Army, the KDF, went to Somalia to fight against terrorism, and it was supported by international community, whereby people went there. They were going to stop what has been of negative effect to our country. As I told you earlier on, these Al-Shabaab people have been blocking people along the Indian Ocean, and it has been a negative influence to our country. You realize that now along the coast, it is where most tourism industry are located, and many people like coming there. So these people have been abducting tourists, and it has been like hindering the economy of our country in one way, because tourism industry is the leading service industry in revenue income earner to our country. So we realize that now going to Somalia, fighting those people, and actually they've ensured that now everything is fine, and they are helping, Kenyan government is helping Somalia government to stabilize their own country, to ensure that it is working on some of the negative things that have been affecting their country. So that is something, in fact, it will going to create diplomatic ties between Kenya and Somalia to ensure that Somalia government is established. As you can know, we've had a lot of instability in Somalia, so this is going to be a positive thing for both Kenya and Somalia. Yes?
Could you please tell us a minute or less, if you can, life in the rural area and what is being done to preserve local traditions?
Oh, for sure. Life in the rural area, as I can say that now, what is happening there is like people, the living condition there is like of very low quality. And what is happening that now, because of the new constitution whereby we've got devolvement, the constitution has led to devolvement of power, so that power has been decentralized to regions. So you realize that now life will be able to improve to those communities that are living there through good health, through good leadership in those areas, good housing in those areas. So this constitution still play a role to ensure that low-income earners, and these are the people who are in rural areas, are able to meet their livelihood. And one thing that is happening is to ensure that these people are also sensitized on good farming methods, because most of them are farmers. So they are being taught their education that is going on, provision of quality seeds, because most of them, they don't have good seeds. Good farming methods are being educated to them so that they can be able to sustain themselves while they are living in rural areas. So this constitution is going to also work to the betterment of the people who are living also in rural areas. I think I've touched your question.
Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. I think we come to an end of that. I'm going to welcome my supervisor, Laura Madi, to, as I can see.
Fulbright language teaching assistant, mainly for Arabic, will speak about his native country of Morocco. And Rashida, my